Yeah, we are now.
Give me a countdown. 3, 2, 1.
Already started.
Great. All right, so this is Yupo paper, and Yupo paper is a synthetic paper from Japan, YUPO, and you'll feel it when you get a sheet, but it's a little bit plasticky. I mean, feeling it is plasticky, but one of the best things about this paper is, unlike your watercolor paper or whatever that actually the liquids and stuff are going to soak into and seep into, this dries directly on top of it. So what that means is you get to play around on top and layer and do all sorts of really fun things, and you get to see it all on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to show you kind of the basics so that you just have an idea of all the different things that, not all the different, but you know, some really good things that you can begin with, and then you can just kind of experiment. Everybody gets 2 sheets, so that's really nice because you can have one that you can just go like buck wild on and whatever. Which sometimes that actually is like my favorite one, because I'm like, I mean, I've used several of my demos as actual paintings, so I've come back to them or just use them, but that's awesome. So, okay, so we have the Yupo, and then these are the inks. So they're acrylic based, but they're way more liquidy than your standard acrylic paint, which is also really fun. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways you can put the ink onto the, yeah, if you can't see, feel free to come around behind me even, onto the paper. You can just go ahead and apply water first, and then you can put the inks on top of the water, okay? Or you can put the inks onto, the eye droplets are a super great feature of this, right? So you can put the ink onto the paper with the eye droplet first, and then you can come back and you can add water to it, okay? Again, name of the game, messy. Yes, okay? And then one other really fun feature is, so that's been water, right? We put the water on first and then put the ink on. We put the ink on and then sprayed it with the water bottle. The blue bottle, and it also is written on here, is rubbing alcohol. So if you spray a little bit of the rubbing alcohol onto there, it's going to do some really fun swimming, and you can see kind of how it's going to. So the water actually just moves it around, but the rubbing alcohol is actually going to change its consistency and change it, and it's going to pocket the liquids and stuff, okay? So those are just a couple of fun things, and again, the more liquidy, the more it's going to do all sorts of really fun running and movement around on the paper, okay? So one of the pretty typical things people who start out with this is that they get really into it and really excited and love their lives, and they put a lot of ink onto the paper, which is great. That's the whole, you're learning. Who cares, right? But it can kind of get to be this more of like a gloppy whatever. It's like too much. So which is great and fine. But one of the things you might want to know then is you can come back and you can pull some of that off, and then you get really cool texturized. Right? So you can come, you can move it around, do all sorts of fun things with that. Okay.
It's perfect. You can't mess up.
No, that's yes! I love it, I love it. Okay, so if you feel like, I mean, the way that I paint is I really don't believe that there are mistakes. Like I think, oops, if I drop that color, that's meant to be, or okay, whatever. But I can understand too if you're like, I'm just not feeling it. So you can do a couple of things. You can come back and you can wipe most of it off. You're not going to get 100% of it off, but you can get a lot of it, especially if you get it earlier on. Once it's dried on there, it has a harder time, but you can get most of it off. Or you can just go ahead and flip it over and start again. Whatever, okay? Now, a couple of other really, really fun ways of putting the ink onto the paper. Has anyone ever seen an atomizer before?
No.
But I want to. I love this group. This is a great group. Okay, so this is an atomizer. This does the same function as your perfume bottle, right? So like with your perfume bottle, you would squeeze it. It's gonna, it pulls the perfume up and it's gonna, spray it out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do it manually. So you blow through the wooden part. It sucks up the ink here, and it comes out of this little hole. Okay, and this moves back and forth, so something that's important to try to remember, whatever we can reteach this, it's not a big deal, but is to try to keep those two pieces as close together as possible, okay? So, a couple of other things about it. You're going to want to keep the long skinny part as straight in the bottle as possible. If you tip the bottle, you're trying to get the most amount of ink in there. So just try to keep it like level with the atomizer. Also, you're going to want to blow pretty hard. For beginners, I'd say lightheaded is a good goal. Seriously. Yeah, you're not going to be blowing for hours, but for those 30 seconds, you should be a little winded. Like that should be the reality, okay? So you're basically airbrushing is what's happening here. Yep, so you blow. And obviously, like, the closer you are, the harder it is, the thicker it's going to be. And then if you come up here, it's going to speckle. Okay? So you can come back on. And any of the parts that have dried, if you go over and wipe over it, you're going to be able to see that underneath here. So, see that. And then if you would just put it in the bucket when you're done and make sure the water goes in here. That'll clean it out for if you go back for a lighter color. Maybe it won't mix. So you might have to fill these guys up a little bit more, but okay? So, yeah. Alright. So, a couple of other really fun things to know about. This is my texture box. So I have all sorts of really great texturizing things in here. Some are shapes. And I have screens of various sizes. I have this really great vintage placemat. You can go ahead and put this on here. We can blow through. So what you'll want to do is come back and then use the atomizer. I just put this here to hold it, but you can hold it with your hands if you want. You can come back through and you can get some detailing there. Okay, so there's all sorts of different things you can play around with that. I have sponges of various sizes. Okay. I'm going to do some of that. Got a great stamper, this little guy. It's a good time. It's like, yeah. And this is fun. This is like the corner, you know, when you like paint a house and you're in the corner. Thank you, Lowe's. And got a little scrub brush for some fun scratching. I have sandpaper for once it's dried, you can come back and scratch stuff off, etch things out. Got that. This is really fun. A friend of mine discovered this. He was just like messing around. He's like, I wonder what salt will do. And I was like, yes. There goes my ear. Great. Okay. We'll do that later. So, any place where there's a nice amount of paint, you can come back over and do the salt. And it's not, the salt will actually stay. It's not completely absorbed, but it will pull some of the paint up. So you can see the difference between the orange here and then the orange up here. Right? And then the salt will kind of stay. So it's got a really cool texture. Feels like it actually. Then I got some clay tools, so if you want to come back through and do some like small pulling out, etching, really fun stuff like that. Toothbrush, always a good time. Do a nice little speckle effect. Let's get some purple on here. Okay, so. Now the inks are expensive, so just go light. I mean, do what you're gonna do, but you know. So I'm just going to come through and do some texturizing here. Okay. Yeah, some more of those. Okay, I think there was something else I was going to show you guys. Well,
you know what I did one
yeah,
day? I don't remember if you remember.
Yeah.
I used a straw.
Oh yeah, the straw. The straws are really good too. Yeah. All right, so let's do some straws because the straw. So the atomizer is going to blow it on, but the straw actually kind of, here, we'll just, I don't know what it is, it's just better to see. But it's going to do like little lengths. So it's a smaller effect that you're going to get for that. Okay, yeah. And then, this other thing I was going to show you guys. Here. Oh yeah, so then I have I just have watercolors. And then I have watercolor crayons too, so if you want to come back, if you want to start, you know, like you can start with dipping it in here. Or if you want to go ahead and paint, or if you want to draw, sketch something out first, and you can come back over it with a paintbrush. It'll pull it out really nicely. You can kind of make some detailing, pastels, in case you want that. And then, oftentimes, people have like a word or a small phrase that is on their mind, or kind of has been something that's been in their heart. And so, if that's something that you have, and you want to come back and do lettering over top of it, you can totally do that. So, like the image behind you back there, well, actually both of them, but the play one is the basic example of that. So what you'll do is you'll do your painting, and then wait until it's dried, and then come back and with the stamps, use the acrylic paint, because the inks aren't thick enough, okay? And then paint on, what I would do is I would take your letter, grab a brush, paint the letter, and then I would test it first, and then do it, because I've done backwardsies. That's definitely happened. Unless you want a backwardsie, then that's great. I did it. So, and if you really want Aletheia, I have an Aletheia stamp. So if you're like,
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
How long does it take to dry?
Like
blow dryer down.
Yeah, we can bring a blow dryer down, but like, if it's like this bottom part is dry. If it's layered, 20 minutes maybe, but I mean within 5 to 10 minutes, your basic coat's gonna be dry. It's pretty quick, yeah. So, yeah. So that's kind of the basic way of playing around, or just kind of like Yupo 101. But I would say this to each of you, that when I paint, and when I paint with people, whether it's individuals or groups, I typically talk about painting for 3 reasons. I talk about painting to play, like have at it, get in there, get messy, whatever, right? And how we undervalue play as a society. But that's just equally as important and sacred. So play, painting to pray. Like there's something specific that I want to talk to you, God, about. So you and I are going to talk together as we create together. So play, pray, and then process. If there's something that you're like, just in there, and I don't know how to get it out, and I want to try to get it out with paint, and that could be another option. So, I mean, there's more than just those 3 Ps. But that's typically a nice way to kind of categorize it, or to think it through in my mind when I'm with people, especially when they're starting out, because it can be really overwhelming. Some people are like, great, let me out, who cares? Other people are like, I don't really know. This is kind of a little bit me. So that would be my encouragement to you, is to kind of think through, are you drawn to one of those 3 things? Play, pray, process. And might there be a word or a phrase or an idea that the Lord's already talking to you about, and might this be an opportunity to connect with God around that? So I'll just close in saying that if you feel like you're 100% A-okay, I know exactly what I'm doing, awesome, that's great. If you feel like you're kind of in the middle, like, I might maybe have an idea, okay, great, awesome. And if you feel like, oh my gosh, I don't really know, this is kind of freaking me out, I really don't know, that's fine too. And I'm just here and available for like any and all of those stages, and would love to be with you in that and help with you, like kind of shoulder to shoulder, like, all right, let's just kind of sit with that and start with that. So, so let me pray over our time, and then we'll get messy. All right?